Hello, I am here today to do a video on my life growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. I know that there's a lot of videos out there already, and I've thought, I don't really need to add my 2 cents in, but here I am adding my 2 cents in. So, so I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and I am no longer, obviously. But what I'm going to talk about is something a little bit different. I'm going to go through my my life story, some things that happened to me growing up, and kind of how Jehovah's Witnesses handle things. But I'm going to talk about religious rights and freedoms and some of the positives of growing up in that way, because I don't think that anybody ever talks about that is an ex-witness. I'm definitely not advocating that anybody join the group, but I think it's important to be positive and take some of the experiences and really use it to your advantage. So first I'm going to talk about, the miracle that I am here. Because Jehovah's Witnesses do not take blood transfusions. And I'm not sure if you can see my gray, but before I was born, there was not the Rogam, I think it's called Rogam or Rogan shot, that pregnant women take to keep their bodies from rejecting the fetus. And I was the third child, so there was a real possibility, it was brought up, there was a real possibility that I may need it's called an exchange transfusion for babies if the mother's antibodies attack. So basically when you're born, you may need to have all of your blood exchanged, or it can kill the baby. Now, there's not any, to my knowledge, reading it now, there's not any risk to the mother. But when my mom was pregnant, she was adamantly against getting any type of blood transfusion for me. So I was actually born in a different location, a different hospital that was like 40 minutes away from where they lived, because the doctor that she was seeing in their hometown, she told me later, because I ended up seeing him for some reason, he was still practicing, and she said that when she told him that she would not take any blood transfusion at all, he walked out of the room, and she was just oh. But I'm thinking, wow, that was a good doctor. He did not want to have anything to do with somebody that was willing to let their baby die. So needless to say, worst case scenario, it didn't happen. I am here, I'm fine. Maybe there was some brain damage. No, that, as far as I know, everything was fine with me. So just was lucky there. So lately there has been protests, and you always hear about the blood transfusion type thing, and I agree that is one of the things that should change, that it should. I know that Jehovah's Witnesses like to talk about there being additional treatments that they can take, but really there's not a good reason to not allow blood transfusions. They use a scripture that says abstain from blood. I'm pretty sure they're talking about eating it in the Bible anyway. There's not really a good reason for them to, and they've changed the doctrine also. I'm not going to even get into that, how many changes that they've made recently. Men can have beards. That was a no-no before, even though they say, we never, of course they like to do that. I'm very expert at gaslighting. But they've changed their stance on blood transfusions. At one point there was absolutely no blood that was allowed, then they allowed fractions, then they allowed treatments that were made with blood. Now I think they say that it's a conscious decision, and But they have, like growing up, they have a blood card that you fill out and you carry with you. And I had one of those filled out. So if you get like in a car accident or anything and you need a blood transfusion and they look through your wallet, to see like who you are, they see this and they're like, oh, we're supposed to let this person die. Cool. So yeah, I remember, and they did that. I think that the card was good for, it has no blood written on it. The card is good for a year. So every year we would have a meeting where we would go and we would fill out the card and we'd have to sign it and everything, that we were not going to accept any blood. So that should definitely change. And I'm not really sure why it's allowed. A lot of times, parents will go to court in order to try to get their kids to not have to take blood, and the children themselves, of course, they're indoctrinated. I was indoctrinated. I would have said, if something happened to me, I would have been like, I'm going to die faithful, not having any clue. Just, following what you grow up with. But going to court, and sometimes it's allowed, and the kids, they die. And I don't understand why that's allowed by the court system, because any other time that a parent has to take their child in for something that's going to save their life, and they don't, it's considered medical neglect. So I think that should change. So growing up in school as a Jehovah's Witness is really fun, because early on you have this little pamphlet that you take, and you have to go up to your teacher the first or second day of class, and of course it's like really crazy, and the teacher is trying to get everybody's name, get everything set up and everything, and so the last thing that they're ready to do is deal with a Jehovah's Witness child. So it always puts you in a good footing at the beginning of the year when you go up to the teacher and you're like, I'm going to be your problem child. And you give them this pamphlet, and you're supposed to like kind of leaf through it and say, okay, so I don't celebrate this birthday, I don't celebrate Christmas, I don't celebrate any of these holidays. And so what you do when you're a Jehovah's Witness child is any type of parties or anything like that, you go either to the library while the kids are doing their parties, or you go sit out in the hallway, either one of those things. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. That part is a lot of fun. And then, also once you get a little bit older, they don't really want you to learn about evolution. So there's a section in, they called it the school brochure. I can't remember exactly the name of it now. It's blue. And you tell them, look, I can't, I don't know what they want you to, I'm not really sure what I was not really ever clear on what message I was supposed to be conveying when I talked to the science teacher. I guess they just want you to try to preach to them, because that's another thing that instantly gains you friends, is when you're trying to convert other people, and they want you to do that. So so you're supposed to go to the teacher and show them the brochure and be like, I believe in creation. And the science teacher is like, okay, well, I'm not going to teach that because it's bullshit. And you're, they don't say that, but you're like, yeah. So they want you to, I don't know if they want you to, I never left the class during science class. I always listened to it, but then they want you to, when you hear stuff instantly that you're not supposed to agree with, or you're not indoctrinated to, you're supposed to automatically like, I'm not listening to this. This is bad. Okay, so anyway, that leads me to my next point. I made some notes here so I don't forget. Depression. Because you're also not allowed to do anything in school. You're not allowed to go to prom. You're not allowed to join extracurricular activities like band or cheerleading. I didn't want to do cheerleading anyway. So when I was in high school, Nirvana was the band. That's, again, the Grays. So I wasn't really into that stuff anyway. But yeah, you're not allowed to participate anyway, even if you wanted to. So you don't have, You're not included with groups. You're not included with friends. I was never allowed to have friends over from school. It's very lonely when you're a teenager, because when you're a teenager, you definitely want to fit in. You definitely want to have friends. And, I was lucky enough that as I got older, there was Jehovah's Witnesses that were around my age that became my friends. So I had a friend circle later on. But, in school, it's very lonely. And so I had some pretty bad depression. I stopped eating. I was close to being anorexic. And probably at that point, I'm trying to think of how old I was. It was freshman year of high school. I probably should have been taken in for like counseling or medication. If you believe that mental health has a genetic component, that's definitely in my family. I take medication now. I have for years. I mean, who doesn't? But anyway. I probably should have been taken in, but Jehovah's Witnesses have this thing to where they don't want to look bad. And if you have a problem or your child has a problem, then it looks bad. And it looks bad on the religion. It looks bad on Jehovah. They don't want to bring reproach on the name. And that's what's gotten them in trouble with the whole child sexual assault stuff, child sexual abuse, is because of the way they handle it. I would not say, just a side note, I would not say that it's rampant. So I have to disagree a little bit with some of the people that do. Maybe it is where they're at. I know that there's a big investigation in Pennsylvania now. Maybe it is, and I just didn't know about it. But I did not leave the religion until I was 27. So during that time period, I'm sure there was stuff that went on that I didn't know about, but to my knowledge, it's not like a rampant thing. I think the problem is how they handle it, because they are so concerned about looking bad. They are so concerned about, because they're the true religion. And if there's any type of flaws at all, or if there's any type of cracks, then it's not good, because it will keep people from wanting to join and being saved, because otherwise, if you're not, then you're going to die. And they really think that. They really think everybody's going to die except for Jehovah's Witnesses. Of course, they kind of have changed things now, but if you do very much studying with them, then that's what they believe. That's really what they believe. I had depression. I probably should have been taken in for, like counseling. The other thing that they don't want with that is if you go to counseling and you start talking about your problems. A lot of my problems were because of the way I was raised. A lot of my problems was because we were socially isolated and not allowed to be a part of groups and, have a normal childhood, because so you go to school all through the week, and then at that time, now they've changed things, but at that time there was 3 meetings a week. So on Tuesday there was a meeting. So after school we would have dinner, and then we would study for the meeting if we had not already studied for it, and that took like 30 or 40 minutes probably at least. And then there was the meeting itself, which was like an hour. You're always expected to go early to socialize, and then you're expected to stay late. So this is a Tuesday night. And then you would get home and maybe have an hour before it was time to get ready for bed. And then we had a meeting on Thursday, which was 2 hours. And of course, they're studying for that, which probably takes at least 2 hours if you do it right. Of course, I'm not sure how often I completely studied for the meeting, but it's okay, because you couldn't have ever been good enough anyway. So then there was the meeting on Thursday that was a couple hours, and then Saturday was the door-to-door preaching work, which took up half of your morning. So there was never any Saturday morning cartoons or watching fun stuff or doing fun stuff on Saturdays. And then after that, there may have been things that you needed to do at the Kingdom Hall, like clean the Kingdom Hall, And then Sunday morning there was the meeting. So Saturday you did the preaching work, and then you had to study for the meeting also for Sunday, which was a watchtower, which took like an hour. We were supposed to do a family study. Trying to think of how long that took. That always took forever, and it was so boring. And then Sunday was the meeting. It was half the day, and then if you were lucky enough to have a guest speaker from another congregation, you may host them in your house for lunch. So in that case, you had to clean the house ahead of time, fix lunch, and then, visit and host and that type of thing. So really was not a whole lot of time for anything really fun. And then, of course, Jehovah's Witnesses are not allowed to, there's a whole lot of stuff you're not allowed to do, not allowed to watch. There definitely would not have been any Harry Potter, which I love Harry Potter now. There would not have been any Harry Potter, no rated R movies. I'm not saying that you should let your kids watch it. I'm not saying that. And some witness families don't even allow PG-13. It depends on the content of the movie. Like if it's anything having to do with magic or spiritism or anything like that, or there was violence and nudity, lots of cursing, that was not allowed. So, that really takes out a lot of movies. Not to say that witnesses didn't watch them anyway. My dad was pretty cool. He let me watch Beavis and Butthead. He liked it. My mom did not want me to watch it, but I watched it because he let me watch it. What else about childhoods? There was something else I want to mention in there. And that kind of goes across the board. Like for music, there was a lot of music that was not allowed. There was a lot of books that were not allowed. I didn't fit in real well with a lot of this stuff because, like my hair's a little bit different, but I was always a little bit different. I always dressed different, so I did not. I was always getting in trouble for how I dressed. I had a lot of piercings, and you weren't supposed to have a lot of piercings. Now this is like when I was a teenager. So not only did I not have any friends in school, I was not allowed to have any friends in school, I was always constantly getting criticized and getting in trouble. And I even had like a talk given about me, probably a few times in the meeting. And I grew up in a very small congregation. We only had like maybe 40 publishers. Yes, coffee. So it was really easy to know who they were talking about because I stuck out like a sore thumb, just being different. So I snuck Stephen King books. I was not supposed to read Stephen King. I hid them in my closet, and I was kind of afraid because, it was considered, some of the stuff that Stephen King writes about was considered like demonic, and I was afraid that if I had... Oh yes, the demon things is real. The demon fear is real with Jehovah's Witnesses. I was semi-afraid that since I had the book that demons would attack me. And I probably had dreams, because I remember having dreams about demons and being really scared. And then of course there's the guilt that comes along with that, because it's like, well, why was I having dreams about demons? Because if I was having dreams about demons, it's probably because I was doing something wrong. So anyway, I snuck Stephen King books. I had a few of them, and I hid them in my closet. I'm going to stop this at the 20-minute mark, so that way my videos aren't like extremely long, but there's probably going to be several of these, because I have such a long story, and, I've thought about doing this, and, I thought, well, I don't really need to do this. I'm kind of a private person. I don't like to put tons of my stuff out there, but it's my story. It's my life. It's things that have happened to me, and I think I probably have a little bit of a different perspective, because a lot of people, they're so hurt when they leave, and when they get shunned and when they get disfellowshipped, they're so hurt when they leave that I think that you have a tendency to be a little bit over dramatic. So I'm not. I think that it's really important to not go overboard with the, anti-witness stuff, anti-religion stuff, because religious freedom is very important. So I'm going to stop this here. Thanks for watching.